Delury. He's a North Korea specialist. He joins us live from Seoul. John, many thanks for joining us today. Can I start by asking you, what exactly is the Workers' Party Congress, and what is the significance that this is the first in over 3 decades?
Yeah, well, we should probably think back to the very first one, which was in 1946, and more than 1980. It might be that precedent that Kim Jong-un has in mind. That actually created the Communist Party of North Korea, which of course his grandfather set up. And then these congresses is sort of the highest level meeting that can be held of the party, of essentially the Communist Party of North Korea. They've been held sporadically, and as you mentioned, it's been quite a while since there's been one. So this is a sort of historic event. It's an effort for Kim Jong-un to establish, not just his leadership, but sort of a new era for his country.
As you can see in those pictures, in that clip we heard earlier, thousands upon thousands of people waving his flags, clearly showing adulation towards him. Is that what this is about? Is that what he's trying to do here, cement his authority?
That's a big part of it. And of course, that's not really anything new. I mean, that's been happening since he took over from his father, who died in December 2011, and that's been happening throughout the history of North Korea. It is it's almost like a totalitarian society where you have these kinds of mass events on a regular basis. So that is definitely one level of what's going on. But then there's also consolidation, not just of his leadership, but of the party itself. And Kim Jong-un appointing a lot of people to all the key positions in the party. So this is not just about him, it's also about the ruling elite for North Korea. And there's also some indications of their policies, both their security policy and their economic policy moving forward.
So looking at this particular Congress, what messages have come out of it? What should the international community be taking away from it?
Well, it's always difficult for the international community, and particularly for the United States, for here South Korea, and for China, to craft an effective response to North Korea. Of course, Kim Jong-un reaffirmed he's going to keep going with his nuclear program. He's going to continue to improve those capabilities. At the same time, it was a relatively conciliatory message. There were some kind words to the South. He said we need to reopen dialogue with South Korea. And to the United States, he was, on the one hand, saying, I'm going to keep going with the nuclear program, but he did hint at some off-ramps, where he talked about we could take positive steps once the threat goes away. And so there is, I would argue, and other analysts would argue, a window of opportunity, particularly for the Obama administration in its waning months in power, to proactively engage with Pyongyang and see if at least we couldn't get some kind of freeze on their nuclear program so that we can stop the very dangerous direction that the situation is going in.
Going back to the domestic situation, there was this huge parade in Pyongyang today. What impact do events like this have in reinforcing the power of the regime? I mean, given the country is going through tougher times, tougher sanctions in the last few months.
It's very hard to know. There are over 100 journalists, foreign journalists, reporting from Pyongyang. They've been there for close to a week. And if you follow their reports, one thing they're all saying is we have no access, to just spontaneous discussions with the so-called average North Koreans. So it's hard for us to know how effective this kind of mass activity is. In terms of the economy, actually, so far, we're not seeing real evidence that these sanctions that came into effect after the 4th nuclear test have really begun to bite yet. Generally speaking, since Kim Jong-un has come into power, the North Korean economy is doing moderately better year on year. So people's lives are certainly in Pyongyang, and maybe even to some extent in other parts of the country, the general trajectory is this modest economic growth. It's getting a little bit better under Kim Jong-un, and it's better than the bad days under his father, particularly in the 1990s.
Okay, John, really interesting to talk to you. John Delury there, a North Korea specialist, joining us there live from Seoul. Many thanks.